All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining today for this 2025, the first episode, webinar, I don't know what to call them, of 2025. It's nice to be back with Learn with Google. And today we're doing a very special Gemini episode here for Gemini for Educators. And Steve is going to take us through a bit of a deep dive into the next generation of AI. And I can see a few familiar faces in the audience here who I know are big AI users. So if you guys feel like you want to contribute anything, I'm sure we'll be more than happy to hear from you. All right, just to welcome everybody, Steve, I'll pass over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Kia ora, folks. Tihe mauri ora I ngā maunga whakahi and ngā wai tuku kiri. Ki te tūpuna tēnā koe, tēnā koutou katoa, and welcome in from this side of the ditch. A few Kiwis I can see are on the call, so great to see everyone this evening. For us this evening, this afternoon.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Steve. Over on this side of the ditch, we'd like to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and honour their continuing connection to land, water and skies, and officially recognise that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities have had such great strength and resilience in the face of colonisation. All right, we will press on. So today you have the two of us. You have Steve Smith. Steve, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, he says, unmuting himself. Kia ora, folks. My name's Steve. I am the Google for Education Program Manager for New Zealand and also work across Australia and New Zealand in our digital transformation team. So welcome in. It's great to be back again. I guess it's kind of a new year for Learn with Google. So still too late to say. It is too late to say Happy New Year, isn't it? Even though it's the first one we've done. Yeah, okay, good. Right.
Never too late. Never too late. My name is Chris Betcher. As many of you know, I was with the Google for Education team for the last few years, but am now, I guess, freelancing. Is that what you'd call it? Anyway, yeah, so that's me down the bottom there. I've been doing this through my freelancing gig through Crux Learning. So anyway, so here we are. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So today, welcome back to 2025. It's really awesome that a whole new school year is here. I'm sure you've all had time to kick it off well. I know Steve ran a series of back to school workshops and they've all been recorded. So if you missed any of that, we can drop a link in for that. We're going to hear from some general Gemini awesomeness from Steve because he's a big fan of the AI stuff. So we're going to hear a bit from Steve about that. And like I said, if you're in the group and you want to add your 10 cents worth or your whatever currency, feel free. I'm going to just take you through a couple of little Chrome customization things that I learnt the other day, thanks to Steve. And then we'll just do the usual unpack what's new with Google. And there's quite a bit of new stuff because we haven't had one of these since last November. And obviously lots changed from there. I've tried to pick out just the big important things. There's obviously been lots and lots of things changed since November. And if we get time, we'll do some questions at the end. All right. I don't normally say this, but all these videos all these webinars are recorded. They do end up on YouTube, and I've always wanted to be that guy on YouTube that says, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So give it a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Apparently, that's what we say. But yeah, if you do watch any of the replays, if you want to subscribe, then you'll get notified of anything that comes out when it comes out. I'll give you the link for that a little bit later. Right now, I'm going to hand over to you, Steve, for some Gemini awesomeness.
Thanks, mate. Hey, I'm just thinking, do you want to make me a co-presenter and then we don't have to do that awkward next slide, please thing? Because the nice thing about Meet is that I can advance the slides if I'm a co-presenter, apparently. So let's see if that will work.
Why can't I find you in the list?
Oh my goodness.
There you are.
Okay, sweet.
Okay. You are. Oh. I can make you a co-host, which you are, but I don't see a presenter.
Oh, yeah, how weird. Oh, anyway, let's do the next. So next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, so actually, Chris, do you want to talk to this? Because the next two slides are your summary ones that I think show really nicely what's kind of in each bit. So Chris has a couple of really nice, easy to explain ones, and I'm going to throw a really confusing one in afterwards.
Well, look, the questions I get about Gemini all the time is like, what do I get? Like if I pay for it, if I don't pay for it, if I'm using my work account, or like, what do I actually get and what features are available? And I've just tried to distill it down into this really simple chart here. So if you, every education user, so I'm talking here about when you log in using your Google Workspace account. So if you've got a school Workspace account, if you're an education user and you're not paying anything to use Gemini, then what you get is the free use of Gemini with data protection, as long as you're using your school account. So log in with your school account, go to gemini.google.com. All the data you put in there is protected. And by that, I mean, it's not used to train the model. It's not seen by human reviewers. And the data is, I'm not we anymore. Nothing ever happens with that data. Okay, so it stays protected. The other thing you get as a free user is access to NotebookLM, and I'm sure Steve will mention it. If he doesn't, I certainly will. So that's what you get if you're just a completely free user. If you're working in a school that has Workspace Plus, so if your school is paying for Workspace Plus, and a lot of school systems are doing that these days, so there's a pretty good chance that this is true for you. You also get the Gemini with included data protection. You also get NotebookLM, but you also get some additional AI type features built into Google Classroom. So the read along feature, practice sets, YouTube quizzes. So some of those AI supported features in Google Classroom, you get those if you're on the Plus edition. Now, if you have a Gemini license, that means if you're paying for an actual Gemini license, and I'll go out on a limb here and I say probably most people at this stage are not. I don't know if that's true or not, Steve. You can probably correct me if I'm not. But for the people who do have a Gemini license, you get access to the more advanced models. You can upload files into Gemini. You get access to a feature called Gems, which again, I'm going to talk about a little bit later. You also get Gemini appearing inside Google Workspace. So you have a side panel and you can start asking questions about your Drive files, for example. You can ask Gemini to help you write in Google Docs or in Gmail. It will summarize documents for you. You get a whole bunch of image creation features, and that's all built into Workspace. Now, you can do a lot of that stuff anyway, just with the free version of Gemini. It's fully integrated, that's all. So that's kind of it does actually make life a bit easier, but you can do a lot of the stuff with the free edition. You also get a few extra features in Gemini Education inside Classroom, which I'm sure Steve is going to talk about. And it will also do translated captions in Meet. And it will also, depending on which version of the license you got, it'll also take notes for you. And I was in a meeting the other day where it took notes for me, and I got to say, super impressive. It did a really good job.
And the little sound you heard, which sounded like a recording started, Chris, I actually switched on the transcribed version of this, and yeah, it actually creates a really nice summary as well, with kind of bullet points and who said what, and so it's not just that bog standard transcription; it's actually notes, which is really useful.
This other slide, which, believe it or not, is meant to unconfuse people. I'll try and put this as simply as possible. If you go to gemini.google.com and you're a Gmail user, so you're just using not a school account or anything, just your regular old consumer Gmail, then one of two possibilities. If you're not using a Gemini license, that's what you get. You get the 2.0 Flash model, you get you got to be over 18, you get limited workspace integration, and the data might be used for training the model. That's kind of the big one there. If you have a Gemini license, paying for it as a private individual, not a school person, the big difference is your data is not used to train the model. You get more storage, you get more access to things, better models, and all the rest of it. If you're using your Workspace account and you don't have a license, that's what you get. And if you do have a license, you can see there on the screen, that's what you get. The big difference if you are using your Workspace account is you can use Gemini for students down to 13 plus. Instead of 18 plus. In both cases, if you're using Workspace, the data is not used to train the model. But anyway, so that I won't unpack the rest of that. You can read it for yourself. But I'm just trying to say that it does get confusing because it kind of depends on, are you a Gmail user? Are you a Workspace user? Do you pay for a license? Do you not pay for a license? That slide kind of, hopefully lays it out a little bit clearer.
And the nice thing about this, Chris, I think you make a really good point there. It's the same thing as like a Gmail Drive account versus a Workspace Drive account. Right. Very, very different. So same sort of deal with this. So we can kind of hang our hats on that, I guess.
Yeah, the thing I think confuses a lot of people is from the outside, they look the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
The Gmail one, interestingly, I was just playing with it last night. There's a lot of integrations with other web apps now. So I can ask it about YouTube. I can ask it about Drive. So, and that's in the very, very left-hand one, not in the right-hand one at the moment.
Yeah, I will. There's one little thing I will point out there, right down the asterisk down the bottom left-hand corner there. Google has a program called Google Labs, which is you can sign up for early release to products. If you have Google Labs turned on, if you're a member of that, then you do actually get some of the advanced features for free as part of your Labs membership. Too hard to explain how you get that. Just Google it. How do I join Google Labs? And just go for it that way. If you've got any questions, reach out to Steve.
Sure.
Right, over to you, my friend.
So this one, this one's split into free of charge on the left-hand side and paid on the right-hand side. And this is often a really nice one when we're talking to schools or to principals or to heads of department or heads of ministries as well, about kind of what does it mean security-wise and what does it mean in terms of service-wise. And so this one here kind of outlines that really, really nicely. Whether if you have a look at the very left-hand column, the free of charge Gemini app is covered by the consumer terms of service. However, if you're using it inside of Workspace, it does bring it into that as well. The Gemini app, the next one over, is covered by a Workspace for Education terms of service. So there's lots of click-throughs you can get to from here. If you want to find out more, there are a whole lot of things we can share about the terms of service, all the legal back-end stuff. So just wanted to flag that, whether things are covered or not.
And Steve, I know this is really getting in the weeds, and most people don't care about any of this stuff or understand any of this stuff. And I don't think it's as simple as it should be, but thanks for laying it out.
Yeah. It's that sort of thing that you would talk to maybe a principal or a head of a diocese or a ministry about what is actually the legal part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Next slide.
Yeah, why not?
All right.
And then a really, really simple one. So Chris's one shows this one beautifully. This is just, when you're watching the recording, take a little screenshot of this. It lists all the things that are available under all the different things. So you can see Education Fundamentals, Education Standard and Plus give you some extra coverage, give you some different terms of service. So we're not going to go into this one because we could talk for an hour and everyone will be bored to tears. Yeah. But if you need to dig into the slides
anyway, we're going to share the slides.
You can dig into this later on. All right, let's jump over.
All right, let's do some interesting things. Okay.
So Chris did talk about, so this one, and I'll flag these ones. This is part of the paid Gemini license. So if you pay for a Gemini license, there are a few additional things you get inside of Classroom. I'm having a look at here. So the ability to scaffold a whole lot of lesson planning or resource planning to create things. So this is sitting inside of Classroom. So in Classroom, there is actually a Gemini Education tab when you're paying for that Workspace, so the Gemini in Workspace license. So you can have a look at different grade levels, different lesson plan outlines, personalizing things to your class, all that stuff down on the right-hand side there. And you'll see down the bottom left, it also sees some suggested relevant video resources are coming very, very soon as well.
Hey, Steve, would you like me to open up Classroom and actually quickly just show people where this is?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, hang
Let's
on a
do
second.
that.
Yeah, go to Classroom. Oh, no, Classroom.
Class Migrator.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Okay. So I'm just jumping into Classroom, and this is what Steve was saying, that if you are paying for the Gemini license, you get this extra button here that says Gemini Education. And when you look at that, it has things like make a lesson plan, generate a quiz, relevel the text, create a hook, create a vocab list. And so all of these things. And when I remember, Steve, when this first launched, I think there were 3 things in here. Now
I think there was, yeah.
And I think at one point I saw a page I wasn't supposed to see, and I had a whole bunch more things in here.
There are a whole bunch more things that are sitting in there that you'll see later on this year. So yeah, the integration of Gemini inside of Workspace is when you pay for that license. I've been talking to a few people about this, and they've gone, oh, how much do you pay for it? And I said, well, how much do you pay for that other product that has a chat bot if you're paying for that month? And they're going, oh, about $40. I'm like, well, this is quite a bit less than that, and you get a whole lot of additional stuff. So it's interesting now what people are starting to pay for. Now, obviously, we're never going to say you should pay for everyone at your school for this, unless your school has piles and piles of money or has just won a lottery. But for some people, this is really useful. I know I'm at the point now where I use this so much that if I didn't have access to it, I would be paying for it for myself, because I actually really find it useful. And that's a big part of this is what's in it for me? Why is it useful? And look at that, as I've been blabbering on, Chris has been madly, well, not madly, but through a few clicks, creating a really nice piece. Now, because most of us on our team come from an education background, we look at this and go, that's a great starting point. A really nice start that you can build on as a resource. But you look at what the starting point is, it's pretty good. Lesson hooks down the bottom, generate a quiz out of this as well. So
yeah, I like the generator quiz thing from this, because after it generates a lesson plan, you can say make a quiz, and it'll use the same theme and come up with questions, and then it'll export those directly out to a Google form. Yeah. Which you can either deliver as a form, or you can import the form into practice sets and turn it into a practice set. So
and people are going to look at this and go, yeah, but that thing over there does that. And I generally say, yeah, but it's not integrated with everything you do, and you're paying for another thing, and you're going out somewhere else and dropping data in there. So the nice piece about this is it's all integrated. All right, let's jump back to that that slide, and we'll click over to the next one. I'm making you earn your money tonight, Chris. Ooh, look at this one. Looking everywhere. Right, we'll jump over to the next slide.
Yep.
So this is one we just looked at again. So the idea of being able to re-level the text. So if you have some text inside your class, re-level it inside of Classroom, send it out. And this integrates really nicely with the student groups. So you might get a text, give it to one group, re-level it, give it to another group. So groups inside of Classroom allows it really easily to differentiate for those groups.
In that little screenshot there, when the text turns green, what's that about?
That's the pieces, I believe that's the pieces that have been re-leveled. So if you have a look at them, you'll be able to see what's been changed as well.
Got it. Makes sense.
All right, let's jump over to the next one.
Which we looked at.
What's that, sorry?
Then there's the quizzes, which we touched on briefly.
We can jump across, because people can kind of dig into some of it. We got a few more resources around that. Otherwise, I'll be talking all night about stuff, and I'd love to get onto other things as well. So the vocab list is there, so you can pick a topic, pick a grade level, create a vocab list with some definitions and some examples. So again, we're trying to build stuff that is helping to support learners wherever they are, but also to kind of take away some of that work from the teachers. So how do we do stuff with AI to free up some of the teachers' time is a lot of what you're seeing here.
I like how when it exports the docs like that, it comes out as a table.
Yeah, yes, there are things that will create vocab lists, but the copy and paste and things go everywhere, or they go into one column, or they put everything into one cell is a bit difficult. Again, because this is all integrated, it's really easy with one click to go from one thing to another.
And only one privacy impact assessment.
Exactly. And this is the one we were just talking about before. So have Gemini take notes for you in meetings. Really cool use case of this is we could grab the notes from this, and I know I can see Donna's face on there, and she'll know exactly where I stole this idea from, is when you have a webinar, you can grab the resources, grab the transcript, whack it in NotebookLM, you have an amazing resource based on the thing you've just done. And because I've just stolen that idea from you, Donna, do you want to give us a quick 2-minute rundown on how you did that with our last GEG Hangout?
Yeah, great steal, Chris. Steve, steal away. And so what we did was just turn the transcript on when we started the meeting. And so once the meet had finished, it generated a transcript in my Google Drive. So I just literally took that document, gave it to NotebookLM, and it created the podcast audio file for us. And I think it was something like 48 minutes of meeting, and it made like a 13-minute audio file, and it had kind of pulled out just the main parts of what we had talked about in the meeting. Yeah, nice. Very cool.
Cool, thanks, Donna. So yeah, that idea, I mean, years ago we talked about app smashing, this idea of using multiple apps. I think we've kind of moved to the point where everything is becoming integrated into our tools. So that's that one there. Let's jump across to the next one. So,
right, Gemini chat ideas.
Yeah, so the stuff we just talked about is the built-in Gemini, the paid Gemini license. This stuff we're going to look at is the free one, the no-cost version of Gemini Chat, we often call it, which you can find at gemini.google.com. In your schools, you'll see here data protection's built in. There's a little shield there that shows you that your data is all protected. If you do mess up and put something in there you shouldn't do, it's not going anywhere, as Chris said before. Best practice always is never to put any personally identifiable information into anything, but there are some data protections built into there. All right, let's go.
Steve, if you will allow me, I'm just going to
Of
go
course.
to Gemini because, like I said before, this is a bit confusing. People often don't know what version of things they're using. When you go to Gemini, why isn't it used to say it down the bottom there? Why doesn't it say it now?
So yeah, so it will sometimes say that your prompts will not be used, but you can see that you just got your little shield there, which is awesome.
You'll normally see a little bit of fine print down the bottom there that says it'll tell you the status of the data protection stuff. I don't know why I'm not seeing.
Correct.
So, okay, so I probably shouldn't have done that.
That's okay, no problem at all. You had your shield, which is the main thing. All right, let's jump to the next one. So I'm going to go for some real simple ideas because a lot of people, when I talk about this, they go, look, why would I use it? How's it going to help me? So I'm going to try and pick some really simple uses that you can talk about. So here's one: create a story about a tiger chasing a butterfly in the forest. When the tiger chases the butterfly, they become friends. So it makes me a story. Then if we jump to the next slide, Chris.
Yep.
I'm going to ask it really quickly to re-level that story for me. So recreate this now for a 14-year-old student. So it's re-leveled the languaging in there as well. So straight away, I've now got a multi-level text that I can give to my class. So if I think back to when I was in the class 4.5 years ago, differentiation was really hard. Creating lots of resources for different people was really hard. It was best effort, and often it didn't go too well. But this was one way I can see re-leveling and making stuff that's interesting for your kids. Real possibility. Okay, let's jump to the next one. This one is if you're allowing your students to use this, for instance, they could jump in and do this. So 13 and above can use the Gemini chat in school with data protections. But also as an ex-maths teacher, if I wanted to create a real simple step-by-step instruction sheet on this, grab it, ask Gemini to do that. I've actually taken a photo of that little question there. So the 3x squared minus 5x plus 2 is actually a screenshot of a task sheet. Dropped it in there because you can put a photo into Gemini as well. And so there is my step-by-step instruction sheet. So it's got all the steps of how to solve that. So there is my worked example, if you like.
Nice.
All right, let's jump to the next one.
I didn't know you used to be a maths teacher. You've just gone up in my estimation, Steve.
Thank you very much. Yes, geography and math. So yeah, there you go. So some people would say real science and not real science. Not me, because geography is a science, and I'll fight anybody that says it's not. But anyway, moving on. So here I am in my social studies class. I want to talk about time zones. So I've asked Gemini to create me a table of time differences of 25 world capitals from Perth, Australia. Now you notice I've asked it for a table, so it's put it into a table for me. Where that big red arrow is, I can then send that out to sheets. So there is my data for that day's lesson on time zones. Now the nice thing about this, again, if I highlight that and try and paste it into sheets, it's going to go everywhere. It might put everything into one column. It might put everything into one cell. So this is giving me a table. I can then send it out to sheets because Gemini realizes I've said table. It'll give me the option to send it to sheets. All right, let's jump to the next one. Okay, so when I used to teach IB geography, so IB as well, Chris, is that next little bit maybe? So IB geography had a leisure, sport and tourism topic. So this was something I could start off that discussion with. So create me a lesson plan on the topic of sponsorship and sport with a 10-question quiz and a student provocation statement to spark group discussion. Now you can see there it says professional sports have become overly commercialized due to the excessive influence of sponsors. So there's my student provocation straight away. Now down the bottom, I can send that out to docs and there is my resource for the day, or I could give it to a relief teacher, for instance, for the day. So there is your work on leisure, sport and tourism and IB geography. It's taken me about 10 seconds to do a lesson plan for that relief teacher or that the supply teacher. Send a docs, off we go, done. All right, next one, Chris. Now, some of you may have seen this before. I think it's a really nice way that I like to start to use about this idea of how to create a really good prompt. And we use something called parts, and the P is a persona. And I'm going to talk about persona in a minute. Now, there is some more information you get around there. What's your aim? Who are your recipients? So a year 10 group of students in New Zealand or Australia. What is the theme? What style? What tone do I want? What is the structure? I want a spreadsheet. I want a bullet pointed list. I want a 4-page document. What I want to get out at the end. So if we jump across to the next example, Chris, we've kind of got a worked example of that one. So The persona, you are a geography teacher in New Zealand. Your aim, you want to create an engaging 6-lesson sequence. Your audience is 15-year-old students. The task is a 6-part lesson plan on tectonic plates with 15 minutes of direct instruction and 30 minutes of group work per lesson. The structure, using the depth of knowledge framework and the solo taxonomy. So I've gone through this really specifically, breaking it down into each of those individual parts. And that actually gives me a really nice output of all those things. So parts might be something you want to talk to your teams about when you start to think about, how do I create a really good instruction? It's like when my lovely wife gives me instruction, she gives me a very specific instruction so I can't get it wrong. Giving a really nice specific instruction to a chatbot as well should make your output much better. However, Gemini has about a 2 million context window, which means you can just go back and add stuff to it and make it better and better and better. All right, let's jump to the next one.
That's one of the things I think, Steve, too, that it's called a chatbot, right? And a lot of people focus on the bot and they forget about the chat.
Correct.
And it's almost, I see a lot of people that expect to put in their prompt and they get a response and like, that's the end of the story. But I don't know about you, but I find I have to keep going back and saying, well, I didn't quite mean this. And can you change it to that? And like, you just refine and refine and refine. And eventually you come up with something amazing, but often you don't get it in that first hit.
Correct. Correct. And I see Ryan has said, challenge accepted of you can't get it wrong if you give me good instructions. Me good instructions, Ryan, or the chatbot? I don't know. Both is quite a challenge at times. Oh, no, nice. So this one, thinking about that persona piece again. So I've asked Gemini to act as the lead character in the book, The Beach, and explain how your feelings change throughout the book. Use specific locations and time references in the book. So first time reference, talking about arriving in Bangkok, meeting Daffy, the trek through the jungle, after the weeks turned into months. Then I've asked it, how did you feel when you first got to the beach? Now, because Gemini remembers that very first instruction, it's still acting as the lead character at the beach. So I can actually have a discussion with the chatbot acting as the person in that book. So if you're doing a book study on the beach, you can actually talk to one of the characters. So if you're doing Lord of the Flies, talk to Piggy about what was going on and all those sorts of things. So it's a really nice way to have a really backwards and forwards, either getting to know the book or quick revision. And again, if students are 13 and above, they can do this, but also as a teacher, you could put in that prompt at the top and then get your students to give questions to ask the person in the book. All right, let's jump to the next one. I think as we go on, I'm going to get a little bit nerdy with some of these. So now this one is looking at if you were the person who was doing PD or PL at your school or at your location. What I've asked it for here is a list of ideas for staff upskilling and training, a 2-day training workshop with 3 sessions per day. I'd prefer activities that are hands-on and can be completed on a Chromebook. Create a table of sessions over 2 days, 1 hour in length. Give each session a beginner experience user option. Give an aim for each session, include a 30-minute morning tea break and a 45-minute lunch break. And export the sheet. So there is a 2-day event that you are doing on PD for your team, whoever they may be. So you can have a look. It has beginner, it has experience, it has the aim, it's got my times. There I've just created a PD plan for 2 days. Now again, edit that to how it works, but it's a nice way to start to break that up.
I may have used that technique to generate the whole agenda for this year's Learn with Google.
Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You know, if you can, why not? Okay, here we go.
I thought this was clever when I saw this.
Now this is I stole this from someone and I'm trying to remember who it was, but being a geography nerd and loving Google Maps and My Maps, this is a really cool way to create something. So I've asked it really specifically to create a CSV file that can be imported into Google My Maps. Now, on the left-hand side is the entire prompt here. So you can grab the whole thing. If you're using, Chris will show you how to use Lens and Chrome soon. You can actually grab this whole prompt. So what it's doing is it's basically making a map for the important battles of the American Revolutionary War. Each of the lines along the bottom there are asking for a different thing to go into that location. On the right-hand side, you can see the code that has come out. I can grab that as a CSV file and then use it. And if we jump to the next slide, Chris, I believe I might have dropped in. So here is the output. So those are all the pins it has dropped. You can see the one I've clicked on at the top right there is the Battle of Long Island. Each of those lines were a part of that prompt. So where is it? What was the start date, the end date, who was the leader, who was the British leader, what was the cause, what was the recap, and what was the result? So this is going from that prompt probably took me about 4 or 5 minutes to get right. But in 4 minutes, I've created this really cool resource that I can drop into My Maps. And then, of course, I can throw into Google Earth. And my students now have a really nice interactive resource around the battles of the Revolutionary War. So that's kind of, we've gone from the very beginning, which was write me a story, to create me a CSV bunch of code that I can drop into My Maps. So this is all using Gemini Chat, the no-cost one. So it's a pretty cool tool. So we'll jump to the next slide, Chris. So this is asking for a very similar thing, but asking for a Google Sheet that can be brought into Google My Maps. So I've done beaches, I've done latitude and longitude, the name, what it's famous for, any specific key details, and that's my output there. So look, my geography brain, when I saw this, went absolutely to town. It may be that you create all those pins, give that map to your students, they find a place, they add some information to it. So it's your starting point for a really cool My Maps type task.
I really like those. That's a really cool idea. I hadn't thought about doing that.
Nice. A really in-depth one, and it took me a while to get my head around it. And I must reference who actually I stole this from, but it's a beautiful idea. And then a really nice one here. So that paper there, AI in Education report. It was a very long report. It is a PDF that's been published on that page. So what I've asked Gemini to do is to have a look at that page because it's published and give me the main themes, give me the positive and negative, give me the positive aspects as outlined in the report. So it's breaking that report down for me. And again, I can interrogate that report because it is publicly available on the web. And I think, is that my last one?
Not quite.
Yeah. So this last one is something I was having a play with yesterday. In my Gmail account at the moment, there are now a whole lot of Gemini extensions. So this is in my Gmail. This is not in my school account. But this allows the extensions to interact with Gemini. So I can actually ask my Gmail Gemini to look in my Gmail Drive or in my Gmail or in my calendar or on my tasks or on my Keep. It actually has a nice link into YouTube as well. So I can say, can you find me 3 YouTubes up that are really good to teach photosynthesis? And my Gmail Gemini will be able to find those things for me. It's not in the other ones yet.
And I haven't looked recently, Steve, but in my Gmail version of Gemini, I think it was also able to tap into things like, there was YouTube, of course, but also Google Flights and Google Hotels and things like that. So if you're booking travel, it's actually looking at the travel service instead of guessing.
So one of the uses with this is I open Gemini, I use Gemini Live, so I speak to it and say, can you give me 5 low carb, high protein lunches, and I want the list of ingredients, and can you send those to my Google Keep? So my Keep now has a list of all the ingredients that I need for all my lunches for 5 days of low carb, high protein. Off I go to the supermarket and I grab my Keep note and there's my shopping list.
Okay, so you're winning me over.
Yeah, so this integration is becoming amazing. It's becoming really seamless. So look, if you haven't had a great look at Gemini, dig into it and start to have a play. So this is your Gmail Gemini. The last one we looked at was your school Gemini chat. The first bit we looked at was the paid Gemini. So there is a whole lot of stuff in there. And I would say that this year, look out for a lot of more stuff. There's going to be a lot of things happening. Donna.
Just one thing I was going to add to that, Steve, what made me think about using Gemini to create that audio was the UDL kind of theories around if you didn't have 40 minutes to watch a video, you might want to listen to an audio while you're doing something else. I find one of the most common uses I have for Gemini is to upload an image and ask it to write alt text. So whenever you're pasting an image on the net, there's no reason to not have alt text now because it does it in less than a minute. Gives you 3 versions, you choose the one you want, and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. John, great question. So in your, if you open Gemini on your phone, if you go into, on the mobile version, if you just tap your little picture up on the left, you can actually switch on extensions. The one Chris is showing you here, that's down in the settings if you're using on your computer. On your phone, it's in your profile picture. So this will ask you to switch on your extensions. And so either way you can do that, either from the settings or from your profile picture on your mobile.
Nice.
And
Well
I
done.
think that might be the end of,
sorry,
the last one. So the last one, going back to that, so this is what Gemini looks like inside my Drive. So this is the paid version of Gemini. So I do get that little Gemini logo up the top there, and then it pops up Gemini sitting inside my Drive. So I should have done this back with the paid ones. So this is when you have that paid Gemini license that will sit inside your Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slide, Chat, Gmail, Classroom, sits inside all of those things there and integrates with them inside your account, not sharing anything outside. So it's putting Gemini inside your Drive.
Nice.
If you have that at your school, obviously, whatever is shared with you as well. So those are kind of the 2 or 3 different versions of Gemini you can see.
Nice.
All right.
All right. Just before I show you this one, Steve, the thing you were talking about, the free version, and then at the end you mentioned if you've got the licensed version. I just think it's also worth pointing out that in the licensed version of Gemini, the one that you pay for, it comes with this thing called Gems. And Gems, to me, this is the best bit of Gemini, is Gems. All that stuff Steve talked about, the parts, the persona and the audience and the goal and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, when you create a prompt, instead of having to put all of that in every single time, you can pre-create a lot of that. So if you're doing something you wanted to act as an early years teacher or act as a particular persona, you can pre-package them into what's called a gem. And then instead of going up here and clicking on new chat and asking Gemini, I call it Big Gemini, asking Big Gemini the question, you come down to your gems and you ask the specific gem the question or the prompt, and then it responds with that persona. And so you can see it comes with a bunch of built-in ones, the brainstormer, career guide, coding partner, copy creator, and there's a whole bunch more here too, I noticed lately. They've added a whole bunch more. So, if you want to be a writing editor or an outreach specialist, like there's pre-created gems that act like those people, but you can also click this new gem button and you can create your own. I like the most hilarious one I think I created was I created one to say act as Pluto, be the ex-planet Pluto and have a real chip on your shoulder every time someone talks to you. And you can have this conversation with the planet and it like complains constantly about the fact there's not a planet anymore. But just the fact that you can create these things and you don't have to go and create those personas from scratch every single time is a massive time saver.
I was just I had 3 principals on this afternoon and we were just talking about gems. And one of them was saying that, so over in New Zealand, we use something called Yastel. It's a way of marking reading. They've uploaded the marking matrix. They've uploaded the exemplars at each different level. What they do is then they copy and paste the student writing, drop it into the gem. And the gem will mark that writing against the matrix, against the exemplars, and in their instructions I've said give us feedback on the next steps to improve that writing, and it is marking really, really well. Because the nice thing about this is it takes out it's the 35th one I'm marking, I'm just trying to get it done, or it's the first one and I'm really keen. Now it's a nice way to give yourself a bit of feedback on how you're going as well, and they actually use it as a moderation tool. So they will mark, double check, and have a little discussion about it amongst themselves as well.
There's a gem here that our friend Chris Hart actually designed, and he gave me a copy of it. And this is like someone acting as a curriculum designer. And the thing about this prompt is I think it's like 18 pages long.
Yeah.
Like it's really detailed, and it goes through all the different stages of what you do if you were designing a curriculum, and it prompts you for input at different points. So you can make this very, very complex if you like to do that sort of thing.
And gems are natural language as well. So when you go into there to create, when you say, I want you to do this, this, and this, and it will do all the magic stuff in the background and write all the magic code, and it will do that stuff for you. So you can just say, I want you to act as someone who can give me 5 options for healthy meals over my week. Go.
Yeah. Just did that this morning.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Steve. I'm just going to talk briefly to people about customizing Chrome. And this is I knew you could do this for a while, but Steve pointed out a new thing in here that I hadn't actually noticed, and I just want to point it out to you because I think it's pretty awesome.
And Chris, just before you go, Jody just asked a question saying she's been in and out of Meet. What Gemini things can my students use on their school account? So the Gemini chat, the one you saw me going through all those examples of, that's available for students 13 and above. So that's what's available for your students to use, Jody. It needs to be switched on. It is not something that's on by default, but yeah, your students can do that. And it is a slightly different experience for students as well. So students can't create images, and there are some pretty heavy guardrails on what students can ask as well. So it is very much
a 13 to 18 year bracket, right? And
13 to 18
minutes of regular adult experience.
18 plus is full speed. 13 to 18. So for instance, I've got a video somewhere I made recently of one of my students, and they said, we're going to a party this weekend. What's the best way to buy alcohol in Auckland? And Gemini said, you're under the age of 18, you cannot buy alcohol. I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. And I came back and I said, no, it's all good. It's fine. My parents say it's okay. And Gemini came back and said, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that, because it knows that it's a student experience. So there are a bunch of guardrails on the student experience, different than the above 18 experience.
All right. Thank you. I'm just going to push on, Steve, because we're very late on time. We will go over time. If anyone needs to leave at 1:15, which is the official finishing time, please feel free to. We will send out the recording, but if you want to stick around, that'd be great too. This new feature, if you open a brand new tab in Chrome, you'll see there's a little button down the bottom there that says Customize Chrome. If you click on that button, it opens a panel on the side. You may have noticed this has been here for a while. This is where you can change the color scheme of the way Chrome looks, and you can pick dark theme, light theme, and that kind of thing. But if you scroll down a little bit further, this is where you turn on the options here to show these panels. So you can see I've got this row of shortcuts here on my screen. That's because I've turned this option on. Show cards and Google Calendar I've got ticked, so it's actually showing my calendar down the bottom of the screen there. So that's neat. But the thing I didn't notice was this new thing that says Toolbar. If you click on Toolbar, it opens this panel and has a whole bunch of toggles for all the different features of Chrome. Now, I'm actually just going to open mine and show you a live one. If I click on my 3 dots here, you might notice that things like, if I wanted to, Chrome's always had the ability to create a QR code from the page you were on, and it used to live up here in the omnibar, and then they moved it, and they moved it down here into this sort of 3 clicks away down here to find it. That seemed odd to me. It's too far away now. What you can do with this new menu, and if I get back to it again, so let me open my new panel, Customize Chrome, scroll down, open up that toolbar. So all of these things now, these are all the things I can live turn on. So if I want that QR code reader, for example, there it is right there. I toggle it, and now the QR code reader button appears at the top of the screen. Maybe I want my, one thing I really like a lot is the reading mode in Chrome. I find that super handy. You turn it on or off, and you notice it appears or disappears from the toolbar here. So you can come in and say, I want the access to the task manager. I want my bookmarks list. I occasionally print things. Like, you can put whatever buttons you want at the top of the screen there just by toggling them on and off. And I think that's a real nice customization feature inside Chrome.
And my favorite one is Lens. So I've got my Lens switched on, so I can now click into Lens, and I can search from Lens from right within my Chrome bar as well. So super useful.
Yep, nice. So thank you for showing me that, Steve, because I've just paid it forward.
Love it.
All right. I'm going to whiz through these pretty quickly just to let you know some of the new stuff that's coming. I've actually divided this into 2 sections today. I'm going to talk about a few of the new things in just Google for Education generally, and I've got a separate section for the new stuff that's coming, that's arrived in Gemini. And I've split it out because I know not everyone pays for a Gemini license, so I just want to make you aware that, that kind of 2 categories a little bit. You can also find out this yourself. If you just go to bit.ly/WS updates, workspace updates, you'll come to the page where I get all this information from, and you can troll through it yourself and have a look. You can filter by month and filter by product. But I just try and pull out a couple of the useful things. So one of the things that they released recently is building blocks in docs. Now, these have been here for a while, but they've now expanded into more and more building blocks. A building block, if you've not used one, in the insert menu, you can go insert building blocks in docs, and it will drop a whole sort of prefabricated table or section into your document for you, and it's all sort of built all for you. So it really speeds things up. As well as the ones that did exist before, you've now got task trackers, a contact list, a decision log. So if you haven't played with this, I'd recommend pop over to your Google Doc, go to Insert Building Blocks, and have a bit of a look and see what you can find there. There's also, as you open each building block, there's also sort of variations on themes. So there's a whole bunch of different categories here: communication, meetings, project management, and each one of them has a separate building block format that you can tap into. So that's kind of nice. That's available to all Workspace editions. The cover images in Google Docs, you have the option now to insert a cover image, which will put a nice sort of banner across the top. It does only work on Google Docs pages when you're in full screen mode. It doesn't work if you're showing page mode. But unless you're going to print stuff, and I use the full screen mode all the time now. I think it's much nicer. But you can add these banners. One of the things they've added to it is you've now got the ability to choose from stock images or upload from your computer, which you didn't have before. So small change, but nice and useful. You can also paste from a URL. You can import your own Google Photos. And if you're using the paid version of Gemini, you can actually use Gemini to generate that image for you as well. So that's kind of cool. Except for the Gemini part of what I just said, that's available to all editions. Google Slides has a new template library. So you probably remember when you open up Google Slides, it'd give you sort of 3 or 4, probably more than that, but 3 or 4 usable templates that you might want to use. The rest of them are pretty ordinary. They've just launched a whole bunch of new templates, and they're really nice. So I recommend you go pop over and have a look at those. The catch with this, as Steve and I worked out the other day, you do have to have your device settings your account setting to United States English, which is kind of annoying, but hopefully they will change that. But for now, if you want to experiment with these new features, just pop into your profile and change your language to US English. And that will instantly make all these new templates available to you. Pick the one you want and then go back and change your language back to what you want if that's how you'd rather play it.
Chris, I remember when Screencast first came out, it was only available on US English as well as the first iteration. So I'm guessing that will change over time as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. But that is the catch right now. So if you like me, you were wondering, they announced this a while ago and I'm still not seeing it. That's probably the reason why. Again, available to all editions of Workspace. Google Classroom has the read-along feature, which is available to the Teaching and Learning and the Plus edition of Workspace. So if you're using Google Classroom and the read-along in Classroom feature, where you can push books out to students and ask them to read the book, and then you get a whole bunch of analytics about their reading. One of the things that's just been added, as you probably have seen in there, Google did a deal with Hegedy a couple of months back and bought the license to all of the decodable books. Actually, not all of them, but I did read somewhere that they are expanding it to actually bring in the whole collection. Right now, there's only, I think, 40 or 50 books in there, but they're getting all of them, I'm led to believe. The new analytics will now show you the decodable analytics as well. So to give you this stuff you can see down the bottom there, the phonics analysis, the digraph analysis, comprehension, and that kind of stuff. So it's a much more detailed analytics for the decodable books that you might push out to students. And I thought I'd mention this as well, that occasionally you might see an app or something and you want your students to have it. I used to be a network administrator in a school. The proper way to do this is not allow just everybody to install everything on your network. That becomes a mess. What this new feature does is allows teachers to find an app or something they find useful and then request access to it. And that request access goes to the admins and they can then make a decision about whether they turn it on or not. But it does streamline the process of teachers finding things they want their students to use and actually sort of putting it into the workflow of the IT team so they can sort of admin that into the system. Again, that's available on all editions of Workspace. Okay, so that's all the Workspace stuff. And then just to wrap us up, we've got some new stuff that came out in Gemini. And again, this is probably going to be more relevant to you if you're paying for the Gemini license. But maybe once you see what is in this Gemini license, it makes it a bit more interesting to maybe get hold of one. The ability to upload docs into Gems. If you've been on the paid edition, you've always been able to upload the Google Docs, Drive files, images into Gemini, Big Gemini. You can now do it in Gems as well, which you couldn't initially do, and now you can. If you're a Gems user, that's kind of a pretty big deal. If you've got the Gemini license, that you can now create images directly inside your documents. You've been able to do that inside Google Slides for quite a while, but you can now do it inside Google Docs as well, which is nice. You can choose your style and prompt it. And I like the fact that they've finally now, you can define whether you want your image to be square, wide, or tall, because it typically used to spit out mainly square images. So you've got a couple of options there now. NotebookLM, which we have talked about before, which is that AI tool where you can upload all your own information into it. You can upload your own documents. You can put video files, sound files, PDFs, Google Docs, all sorts of things into it, and then it will generate content based on the content that you give it. So you're actually sort of grounding the AI tool in your source of truth. Google released an upgraded version of that about a month ago called NotebookLM Plus, which is kind of the same tool, but you get 5 times as many audio overviews. You can do more notebooks, more sources. You can customize the style and length of the notebooks. You get full analytics on it and full data protection on it. So it's like just a supercharged version of NotebookLM. If you're a Gemini user, you have automatic access to NotebookLM Plus. You don't have to do anything. It will just appear for you. And just so you know the difference between the two, I've listed some of the differences there, and also pointing out that both NotebookLM and NotebookLM Plus are both Google Workspace core services. If you're not an admin person, that might not mean a lot to you, but basically there are core services and additional services, and they have slightly different terms of service. Now that NotebookLM and NotebookLM Plus are both core services, they fall into that same category of apps as the rest of Google Workspace. So it's all, if you've got your approvals and everything for Workspace, so then it gives you the automatic sort of privacy approvals and everything for Google NotebookLM. And you can see some of the differences there, the number of things you can do between the regular version of NotebookLM and the Plus version. And I think this is the last one. If you are an administration person, and if your school has paid for Gemini and you've bought a whole bunch of licenses and you're paying for them and you're wondering, is anyone actually using it? Like, are we getting value from this this money that we're spending? You can now go into the admin console and see a full breakdown of who's using what. You can see how many times the Gemini AI has been invoked, either by product or by user. And so if you are spending money on this tool, it gives you a much clearer indication about who's actually using it, whether they're using it a lot or just a little, and obviously you can decide whether it represents the value you want to get from it.
And Chris, down the bottom, you can see there are 2 references. There is Gemini app. So that is the gemini.google.com, the chat version. Gemini side panel is the built-in one. So you can see what's being used by the different users across your school. So if you are using Gemini as your school account, your admin can have a whole look at the metrics across the school. Not what you're doing, but have a look at the metrics.
Yeah, awesome. And that probably brings us to the end of all that stuff. If we will make the slide deck available to you as well, along with the recording. And just in case you hadn't noticed it, the more information button down the bottom of each of these slides will take you to the page where it has all the official information if you want to really read up on the detailed stuff. We are recording this today and we will put it up on YouTube as soon as it processes. If you want to revisit any of our previous videos, you can find it there either on that QR code or bit.ly facebook.com/LWG_rewatch. And as I said, we'd love you to subscribe, and we'd love you to click the little bell icon so you get notified. That'd be cool. I've always wanted to say that. If you'd like a PD certificate for joining us today, you can scan that code or go to bit.ly/GFE certificate and just fill in the form, and a certificate will be automatically mailed to you. Thanks to the.
I was just looking at their name, going May do. Right, gotcha. That's a nice one. That's a new name, and they're not suited at last year.
Yeah,
there you go. Made up name. Yeah, nice word.
Yeah. And of course, we would love to get some feedback on this. This is the first one of these for 2025. There's quite a few people here today. We'd love to get some feedback and hear more about what you thought of today and any direction you'd like us to sort of go in the future. We love your feedback. If you can go to that address there, bit.ly/LWG_FB for feedback, or just scan the QR code, or just use Google Lens to scan the QR code. And then fill in that form. That'd be great. It's just a couple of quick questions. I'll leave that on the screen. But wrap us up. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Steve, for all your input.
Pleasure. Thanks for teaching me a few new things as well.
No worries. And thanks, Donna, for jumping in and being always willing to participate, even without warning.
I did not warn Donna about that one. I just saw her smiling face in the corner of my screen there and said, let's ask Donna how she's used it. So thanks very much for your time as well, Donna. As always.
All right. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Please do fill in that feedback form, as I said. Get your certificate if you'd like it, and check us out on the YouTube. And we will see you next month for the March edition.
Thanks, Chris. Nice work.
Adios. I'll stop the recorder.
I'll stop the transcription.
All right.
So that's an interesting one with the transcription. It will just keep going.
Yes, it does. Yeah.